Yeah, it's another Relics Radio Thursday night here in Colorado. Just about 6 p.m. my time here, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. Hey, how's everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of Relics Radio. We appreciate you being there, whether you're listening live to us tonight or whether you are downloading the show later. We see the numbers we see out there, and we sure appreciate the help and support that you all show, sending us messages. And, yeah, we really do appreciate it. Show's been running for 6 years, and we really enjoy having a great audience out there with some great people. Everyone, last week, man, the last show we had last week, I actually had to take a trip to handle some things in California with my family and stuff, so we didn't bring you a show last week. But the week before, boy, we had that legend giveaway with Delek Gagnole with Nocta, and that was a crazy show for those of you that were in the chat or watching the show live. It was just absolutely crazy. So many people coming in there trying to get into that, trying to get onto that giveaway. And then Delek surprised us and actually gave away a Simplex Ultra as well. Just absolutely amazing. How's everyone doing? Let me know in the chat. I'm already seeing people roll in here in the chat. Tonight, real quick, just want to shout some of them out. Of course, my buddy 5280 Adventures was in there. We got Digging the PNW, big winner from the Legend giveaway. And Bill Hayes, of course, good to see you. Michael Sausage Bread Boils, how are you there, buddy? And yeah, everyone else rolling in. Great show for you tonight, for sure. I'm trying to get my co-host hooked up here. He's trying to get things rolling. Tony on yet? Nope, not yet. Technical difficulties over there in the Tony studio. Is that what we're calling it? It's our $1 million studio. I'll tell you what. Perry, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Just saw you pop in. Yeah, it's been a wild week. Like I said, I spent almost last week in California. My mother actually I had to get her put into a new, like a senior care facility. It's like, man, and I've never been involved in that. Like, I've had other siblings that have kind of taken care of that because I'm the baby of the family, but I'll tell you, had to jump into that and kind of take control of that and get her moved about 90 miles away and get all her doctors switched over. And any of you that ever done that for a parent, you know what a challenge that is for sure, but definitely needed to be done. And so we went out there, took a flight out there, and I've been dealing with a lot of stress. So my wife and I said, we're going to take a couple days while we're away and get away and clear the head. And so we took a trip. We went into San Francisco. I grew up in Northern California and moved here in 2000 to Colorado. But so, yeah, I went to San Francisco and enjoyed, Pier 39 and Fisherman's Wharf and all that stuff, and just was a tourist for a day. And then the next day we ended up going to Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, a little further up on our way to Hollister. And yeah, we had a good time, but I didn't bring my metal detector. I know a lot of you guys are going to go, why would you be going to a beach and not bring your metal detector? Well, one, I had the wife with me, and we were definitely just going to concentrate on being tourists. And it wasn't that kind of trip where we were planning on really getting away too much. So we ended up heading out there. Yeah, I see a lot of the wishes for me. Thankful that I made it out alive for sure. Yeah, no problems there. I know they've had their problems in the past and recently, and we didn't have any issues at all. It was clear sailing. No issues, no problems at all. Tony, you still having technical difficulties up there? He's got his hands up in the air. I don't know if he pulled a plug or what. You should reboot that computer and let me know if I need to bring you back into the show. Tell you what, real quick announcement, and I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest on for sure. Great guest tonight too with Dr. Jeff Barber. Can't wait to talk to him. One thing I want to tell you guys about, we've been talking about it for a while now, is Rush to the Rockies 2023. The Stampede, which is our national open metal detecting hunt here in Colorado. up in the mountains of Conifer, beautiful mountain park up there. July 7th through the 9th, 2023. It's 2 days, 5 hunts, plus a kids hunt. And it is a seated hunt here in Colorado. Last year was this absolutely amazing event. People had a great time. We gave a ton of stuff away. People found a ton of silver and relics in the ground that we had planted, and everyone seemed to have a really good time. Right now, the price is $290 until May 12th for the 2 days and 5 hunts. We also have like a meet and greet happening the day before the hunt actually starts. And we just added a brand new barbecue lunch. That's an option for you there. You can have 2 meats, 2 sides, and a drink and a roll for about $15, I think it is. We got a great barbecue company that I absolutely love coming in to feed everyone if you so choose. Again, $290 until May 12th. And then after that, it goes up to $350. So if you want to come out here and meet Tony, myself, Jeff, Lubert, and all the great people here in Colorado, make sure you get on that. You can just go to just search Rush to the Rockies metal detecting or Rush to the Rockies, and you'll definitely be able to find us. It's at eurekathc.org, which is our Eureka Treasure Hunters Club here in Colorado. All your fees go directly into the ground. None of your fees are used to run the event. We use club funds for that. So be assured that all your fees go straight into the ground in silver and other great items. We get donations for token prizes and such given to us and graciously. And if you need more information, you can reach out to me too on any of the social media out there. You can find me there or over at Relics Radio Facebook group. All right. Yeah.
Little rain.
We've had some storms here in Colorado. Kind of, we get through these, right around this time too, right when spring starts hitting, we get this, really nice weather. Sometimes hot, sometimes just mild, and then all of a sudden, bang! We'll get these. We're expecting snow in parts of the state, and we're close to May, right? So that's kind of crazy. Your snow. What months do you guys get snow in Arkansas? Is it?
We've seen snow in April, but typically about the first week of April is the latest you'll see any.
Yeah.
I don't want to see any more.
Yeah, I'm done with that too. I shoveled a lot this year, and it seemed like we got a big, huge winter. I'll tell you. England. So you and I and Tony, we spent a week over in England. I'm trying to get Tony back on with us. Just a number of weeks ago, it was a good time. We were in Colchester, right?
Colchester, the weather cooperated and the fields were great, and a lot of people found a lot of nice things.
Now, you've been over there a number of times, correct?
Yeah, this was my 5th trip with various different guides, all with the same land, and it's just amazing how much treasure comes up at each trip.
Wow.
It never seems to end.
Yeah, people always ask that question, right? They're always like, well, doesn't he get hunted out? You guys go to some of the same fields, and they know they do pull new land. He's always trying to add land there. But, yeah, talk about that. Like, it's never hunted out.
There's thousands and thousands of acres. And sometimes the tractors there have a really neat way of plowing. They've got beets and potatoes and onions and carrots. And so they do a really, really deep plowing. And so it seems like each year they'll cover a few things up, and each year they'll reveal a few more things. And sometimes you're able to go on hoard fields where there's known gold coins that have been found, and sometimes the hoards have even been disclaimed. So we know that subsequent finds will be able to be kept by the person that finds them.
That's always great. Like we had that happen. I went in 2020 with a group, and that actually happened with all the gold that was found there. That happened with all the gold. Like it was all disclaimed. So eventually people got it back. But yeah, because they were part of previous hoards. Like that always really interested me, that it could be part of a hoard and they don't want it. You know, they got
once
enough,
they found
I guess, huh?
enough episodes, right? Yeah, and they have to pay what they call fair market value for each of the coins. And once they've had 20 or 25 representatives, they're done with it.
Yeah. Which is great for us if we happen to stumble upon them and find, right? I think it was Missouri Mike in our trip that in 2020 that he found 5th century hammered gold Roman coin. It was just absolutely amazing. And we thought for sure that would be claimed, but no, they disclaimed it.
I saw the coin, but I wasn't there on that trip, but it was a beauty.
Yeah, it was a real beauty. So when's the first time you went? Like what? When was your first trip?
It was pre-COVID. You know, I was watching Plugmaster Ford, and he was talking about a silver hoard that he had found in Missouri, and he said, "I'm going to use this money. I'm going to sell these coins because they were modern silver coins. I'm going to sell these coins, and I'm going to pay for a trip to go metal detecting in England." And when I heard that, my ears perked up, and I sent him a text message, and I said, "I want to go with you." And he called me. I gave him my number, and he said, "We just happen to have an opening in our group." And I jumped right in there, and that was my first trip, and I've been 5 times now, and I love it.
Yeah. Where did you go? So you went with the same group, the Colchester group, the first time you went?
I've been to Colchester each of the times under the same Colchester Treasure Club, but I've had different guides: Georgia Buddy, South Carolina Jimbo. I've also been with Chicago Ron, and each one of them has their own perks, and they're all fun. And I found silver, and I found Roman, and nice relics each time I've been.
Well, Romans. I found one Roman and it didn't have any detail on it. I finally got an ID on it, but have you found much Roman with much detail on it?
Yeah, it seems like some of the copper coins or the bronze coins, you know, if they've been in a field that's had fertilizer, sometimes they're a little bit more worn. You know, if you're lucky enough to get over a pasture field that hasn't been plowed much, they're going to usually have more detail because there's been less fertilizer. But I found a really, really nice Roman denarius back in October, and it was 42 BC, and it had an emperor named Cornuficius on it. And I think that's a weird name. Every time I type it in, it wants to go to Confucius.
Right.
But it may be worth $1,000.
Wow.
Kind of odd.
Yeah, that's just amazing. You said 42 BC?
42 BC. And this last trip we were at, there were several silver Roman coins that were found by different hunters.
There was.
And what was it you that found the imposter?
Yeah, the fake. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
Oh, it crushed me. I even found a fake silver Roman coin. So yeah, we were finding all the silver stuff. Yeah, that was just crazy. We talked about it here on a previous show here on Relics Radio, and I'm telling you what, somebody played a pretty bad trick on me. I'll tell you that.
I remember that day. It started raining, and then it got hot, and then it sleeted on us the same day.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, in our trip, the weather wasn't too bad. I mean, have you been over there in springtime before?
I have.
Yeah.
I've never been there in blowing snow.
Oh.
I've heard stories that the wind was going so bad that they were walking backwards with their backs to the wind, metal detecting backwards. That's a little too hardcore for my blood.
That is pretty hardcore. I mean, it's already hardcore digging over there, you know, because you're going so long and you're out in the field for so long. And that's why I thought it'd be great to have you on here tonight, because we, Jeff's a doctor. What discipline of medicine do you practice, Jeff?
I'm a family practice physician. I went to the osteopathic medical school in Kansas City, Missouri, and I've been here in my hometown in Jonesboro, Arkansas for 17 years and 6 years in Wynne, Arkansas, the town that just got hit by the tornado before that.
Wow.
And just taking care of people in my community.
Yeah. You know, I think Plugmaster Ford was kind of like talking about like, yeah, it's so hardcore. We got to bring a doctor with us, you know, and he was kind of making jokes about that leading up to our hunt. And then, you know, I got to thinking about it. I was like, man, I bet you Jeff would make a good guest here for Relics Radio, because not only in England, but specifically in England, you hunt for a long time in various conditions, weather and terrain, and you know, everyone's in different physical condition, and sometimes that can lead to some challenges and stuff. I know that last year when we had our hunt here in Colorado, we had a lot of people coming here for the first time to Colorado, and we're doing it again this year. And they come and we're up, you know, where we hold the event is about 8,300 feet above sea level. So that provides some altitude sickness and people getting headaches and dehydration, and it just affects people differently. Tony, you on with us?
Holy cow! I apologize, man.
Hey, we've had a good time without you, Tony.
Yeah, I know. I gathered that. Hey, Jeff, it's good to hear from you, bud. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thanks for having me, Tony.
Good. Yeah, I got the. Ken hit start, and all of a sudden my headphones just literally powered down. So I didn't charge them. It's something my fault. Anyways.
Well, we were just talking. We were talking about England. Yeah. You and Jeff spent some good time chatting about different things, right? You guys had a good time to kind of get together and chat. I know that Jeff and I did too. We were talking about all kinds of other things going on in their lives and stuff, and it was really cool to make those connections, you know.
For sure. I mean, with this being my first time, I kind of, you know, I leaned on Jeff a little bit because he's been there so many times. But, you know, aside from the metal detecting in a foreign country that's historical, just getting to talk to people and learn, you know, people all around the United States that have the same interests and hobbies that we do. And I had a great time just kind of getting to know Jeff. We talked a lot about personal things away from England. And, I mean, I really honestly respect him, you know, why he's on tonight to talk about these medical things. I mean, Jeff knows the stuff. I'm really blessed to have spent a week with Jeff for sure.
Well, thanks. There's a lot of potential medical issues that could arise for people.
Yeah.
Sprains and strains, dehydration, lots of issues.
All that stuff.
Have y'all had any health issues personally while metal detecting?
I'm trying to think. Well, besides being irritated, my blood boil.
I've been so hot and so dehydrated, so sweaty that I didn't know if I was going to be able to stand up for my next plug. And, you know, when it gets to that point, you probably need to take a few minutes and have a drink and hydrate yourself, some good cold water or maybe a Gatorade, and keep your electrolytes going.
Yeah, I definitely. Most of the issues I've had has been due to heat, definitely because of heat and exertion out there. I definitely had some physical things. I know we had one question that come in that I'll bring up a little bit later about using knees versus using your back, you know, kneeling versus stooping over. But the heat, man, Tony and I have been digging out in the heat here in Colorado sometimes, and you know, you try to stay hydrated, but when you're out there, if you're not carrying it with you and it's back at your car or something, sometimes you just push it a little much. And I remember one time I stood up from a hole and I was getting the sparkles, you know, I was feeling sparkly and my fingers were tingling and I was like, what is this?
That's one of the codes. When we're in England, if you do decide that you need to sit down and take a break, they tell you, stick your shovel in the ground and lean your metal detector up against it, and that's kind of the signal that you're okay.
Yeah, and
when you're half a mile across the field.
And I messed up on that. I did not know that code, and I did not follow that code, and I felt terrible because my preacher digger had to walk an entire field away to come over and check on me. I had taken a break and I'd kind of just sat down. I pulled the target from the hole and I was sitting there, and I pulled out some water and I was sitting there, and then my wife texted me, so I kind of laid back on my back and had the phone up above my head, just kind of texting her, and taking a break. And all of a sudden, here comes Preacher Digger, straight beelining towards me, and he looks at me. He's like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Oh man." And as soon as I got off the phone,
and also, we've got another backup method with the walkie-talkies that everybody carries, and sometimes that's a good way to check in on people too.
Yeah,
we're usually in vision sight of each other.
Yeah.
Plugmaster went down. He was just taking a rest, but we were right on the radio there, just checking in on him too. I wasn't too far from him. I know Ken was right there with me too. We were on just one field over, but he went down. He was laying down, and everybody's checking in on him real quick. You just never know.
Right.
My gosh, we were out there with Missouri Mike, and he's had a whole slew of medical issues. I know that. I'm pretty sure out of the
seizure,
the 14,
yeah.
Out of the 13 other people that were there, I guarantee there were 13 single eyes from watching Mike for the entire trip. We always had an eye on him for sure.
And we were pretty diligent about taking breaks and making sure we hydrate at lunch and grab a sandwich.
It's important. You don't realize.
Sure.
I mean, I was gonna ask. I mean, even being in England, and we were in the temperatures from 40s up to 55-ish. And you're still gonna need to worry about dehydration, right?
Right. Yeah. I think Preacher Digger carried a Camelback with him, and I've had times when I've had bottles of water that I would have on my belt and just go to when I need to.
Yeah.
Sometimes even having a little piece of candy just to get your sugar back up.
Right.
It's a little bit more exertional than you think. You get in there and you look up and it's been 4 hours and you haven't had anything to eat or drink.
Right. Yeah, that's easy to do.
Hard.
Yeah, I don't know how many times here in Colorado, and Tony and I are digging partners here in Colorado, and we go out digging together. We'll get out there early, we want to hit it early, so we get out there 7:30, and next thing you know, it's 3:30, and we're exhausted, and we're like, man, we haven't taken a break to grab anything to eat or anything. We've just been hitting it hard, We do tend to carry water with us, but sometimes food, we miss it with the food, so definitely.
Yeah. Typically around where I hunt, I don't get too terribly far from my pickup truck, but there in England, you may be a quarter of a mile away or further. From the van.
Right. Yeah. Especially with those fields we had access to. Sometimes you're a lot further.
And not to mention, if it's muddy, you're traipsing along and your boots weigh 20 pounds and your shovel weighs 20 pounds and the mud sticks to the coil and you got your scraper trying to get all that cleaned off all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing I was most concerned with. And it doesn't have to be England. It can be anywhere when you're out in wet conditions. Is I was kind of purposefully trying to set my foot because I knew that twisting an ankle could really mess me up for the week, and I didn't want to go down. And then just lifting it up out of the suction of the mud and putting it back down again.
Sure.
Plus you have all this mud stuck to your boots. I think it'd be really easy to twist an ankle, especially with the ruts of the rolled fields over there. And I guess just going slow and being purposeful on where you're putting your foot is about the best advice we could give on that, right?
That's good advice. It's also not bad advice just to stay in good cardiovascular condition so that when you do decide to go out, that your body's ready for the demand. Not that it's a race, but you still need to be prepared to squat down or bend over or stoop and stand back up dozens of times.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to have good knees.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I wore knee braces the entire time I was out. I
always use a knee pad also.
I was going to ask you about that, Jeff. What do you think about that? I've heard a lot of comments from people that said it actually does more damage if you're wearing a knee pad, and maybe it's the type you're wearing, but sometimes that can really mess with your knee cap going down on it too hard. Or I wear knee pads every time I hunt. I have for years since I've been hunting. But
me too.
Yeah, you would recommend them rather
so
than not?
Absolutely. I have psoriasis, and so occasionally, when I go down on one knee to dig a plug, I will always find the rock or the twig with my kneecap. And so I found that knee pad to be invaluable. And, I'm slow. I've never really hurt my knee by dropping down to a knee. And, I've seen some people will just bend over at the waist. Some people drop on both knees, and some will just go down on one knee. And I typically just go down on my right knee and dig the plug and stand back up and keep the left knee up. And that's the style that works for me, and everybody kind of picks their own way.
Yeah. I wonder how. We had a question come in before the show. Actually, somebody asked a question about, there's two schools of thought when you're going to be doing a dig like we did for 7 days straight, using your knees, going down on your knee to retrieve a target versus just, maybe widening your stance and stooping over, as long as you're not straining your back, but actually going down to retrieve a target if you can reach down that far and pulling a target out. Is it just individual to each person to what they're comfortable with, or is there one over the other?
I would say so. There's considerations on someone's weight, and if a person has osteoarthritis of their knees already, or if they've got a bad back, and you want to make sure that your muscles are acclimated to whichever way you're going to gravitate towards, the way that's the safest and the easiest for you. And it's not a race, and you can take your time and just make your plug and get the target and cover it up and do it the safest way that you can, avoiding injury.
Sure.
Yep. I know that I haven't had an injury. I was never seen by a doctor for it. I just rested it and didn't do it. But I was overweight more than I am now. I'm still a little overweight, but even more than I am now. And I would go down on my knee, I told you I wear knee pads. So I go down on my knee, either one knee to retrieve a target, sometimes even both knees. And because of my weight and the size of me, I would kneel down to go onto my knees, and it would be that last 6 inches that would be more of a fall on my knee. You know what I mean? And I started feeling like I had this real sharp pain, and I was like, oh, I think I really did something. So I just kind of stayed off it and rested it, and it didn't really swell too much. It scared me enough that I was like, well, I have to stop falling onto my knees. If I can't place my knee, I'm just going to try to stoop over and stuff. So I know that last 6 inches.
Some people use a pad. Just have a rectangular pad like a gardener would use, and just put the pad down. Not even have a knee pad, but just carry one. Interesting. After I got back from England, I had an injury. I had strained a muscle in my forearm, and I thought, how did I do this? I'm used to swinging this metal detector so much, and after I got to thinking about it, it was pulling my luggage through the airport. I had a big, long suitcase, and it was 70 pounds. And I strained a muscle in my arm, and it's actually still giving me a little bit of the difficulty right now. But I did take a round of steroids, and I rested it a little bit, and it's better.
I thought you were going to say because of the weight the mud adds to your coil. It was like, I know that was really stressing the top part of my forearm. You know what I mean? The top where I was trying to keep the coil elevated.
I'm certainly thankful for lighter metal detectors.
What were you using out there?
This time I was using the Deus 2. It's really lightweight. But in the past, I've used the CTX 3030. And if you've got the 17-inch coil on that thing, it is a beast. And a lot of people use the swingy thingy, that little rubber contraption that you go around your shoulder. And that helps with ergonomics and takes some of the weight off of your arm with all that repetitive swinging.
Yeah.
Anything you can do to make it more efficient and easier.
What did you say, Tony?
Jeff Ford had the whatever that thing is called, attached to his shoulder, and he was talking about, instead of holding it up, like using your bicep and your forearms to hold it up, he actually is having to press it down to keep it level. So he's using more of that
to stretch the rubber band out.
Yeah.
And then you use the momentum of the rubber band to allow the detector to swing.
Sure.
It's a lot easier on your muscles.
That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of people do use those slings, especially the people that are swinging the big, heavy PI machines and like digging in Virginia and stuff. And I've seen Plugmaster Ford use those pads too that you were just talking about. Him and Missouri Mike. He told me he gets his at the auto parts store for like kneeling down, working on cars and stuff. Like you can find them there as well. About 1 inch thick and probably about 18 inches by 12 inches or something like that. And it always seemed like a really good idea. I guess stretching, getting prepared is probably key, right? I mean, I'm terrible at
once
stretching
you get
ahead
to be
of
about
time.
40 or 45 years old or older, sometimes we can be susceptible to tendon injuries and muscles tearing. And, just good flexibility and a good warm-up is always smart to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, we had a quick question over here, Dr. Jeff.
Lay it on me.
Denny over in the chat wanted to know someone who's had a knee replacement. What should he do? What should he avoid? What should they be looking for? What would make it a little bit easier?
Well, hopefully the knee replacement surgery went well, and hopefully he's been released to full duty by his orthopedic surgeon. And provided all that's working well, I think that, our bodies were made to push and pull and climb and lift and do things. And sedentary lifestyles are not good for anybody. And so he needs to find the way that he can dig holes the most efficiently that he can without making the pain worse. And if that's going down on one knee or both or stooping, his body will respond to each of those methods until he finds the one that's most comfortable.
Yeah, Denny, the same person that asked that question earlier, I think he already answered his own question. Earlier in the chat, he said that he just usually brings his wife with him and have her dig all the holes. So that would probably work too.
That's another great tip. There you go.
We had another question come in from looks like Michael Sausage Bread Boils. Mike, when are you going to send me some sausage bread, man? That's got to mean something, and I can handle some of that sausage bread. He said that, has Dr. Jeff ever suggested the hobby of metal detecting to any of his patients for any reason? Like, I'm thinking like you might have a senior that comes to you and sedentary. No,
absolutely not. No. I have enough competition as it is. I don't need more competition. They can go walk. They can go to the gym, but not metal detecting. They need to cough up their sites and let me have them.
Under no circumstances.
There you go. Great answer.
Good answer.
Great answer. I know a lot of people point to metal detecting as being great, for their mental health and for, getting away from things and stress reduction, stress relief. And I know it really helps me too, especially when you get out of there and you're all by yourself and you're looking where you're at out in nature. I mean, almost anything you do in the outdoors can have that effect on you, I think. But metal detecting, I've heard quite a few people talk about that, just helping them deal with the stress of things. And
yeah, we need to find balance in our lives with whatever hobby that we have. And of course, we want to do it in a safe manner and don't get injured. But we've got to have balance in our work and our play for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
Have you ever seen any injuries out there with people out detecting around you?
I've been blessed that I haven't, but other injuries, you think about sprains and strains, you think about heat-related illness, heat exhaustion or dehydration, blood pressure issues. Somebody could even have cardiac issues out in the field. And here's one you don't think about, but, it's probably not a bad idea to keep a pair of gloves on in case you happen to dig a piece of broken glass or some tin or even a hypodermic needle. And, then we have our headphones on, and it's always a good idea to keep your head on a swivel and make sure that nobody's sneaking up on you or sometimes there's nefarious characters out there.
Yeah. I know. Ken, wasn't it? Was it Dwight that was talking about He's down the Kissimmee, Florida area, and he says that he hunts a lot of abandoned lots and those kind of different things, or parks. And I believe he carries a firearm on him, just in case.
I've heard of people doing that as well.
Yeah.
You know, so my shovel is a pretty good defense
there you go.
weapon if I need it.
Yeah.
I hope I never need one. But another interesting thing that happened to me a couple of weeks ago, actually, I was in a park and I heard a commotion and I turned around and a dead tree limb had fallen out of a tree real close to me. And I was just glad I wasn't right underneath the tree limb when it fell. But,
you know what I carry on me? I carry a spray bottle of water. Anybody gets near me, man, I am spraying them right in the eye. You don't want to get near
Mikey Squirty Squirt.
The Mikey Squirty Squirt. That's
Missouri
right.
Mike Squirty Squirt.
He's got his Squirty Squirt. That's it. So let me ask you, I've actually had it happen to me. I didn't know what to do about it. Let's say you get stuck with a needle.
Yeah.
Let's say you're rummaging around and all of a sudden you realize that you just got poked by a needle.
Well, most of the time, the needle that you're going to be stuck with is not going to have any biological material on it. It's going to be something that's been in the dirt. Anything that it had on it was probably degraded, and unless it was a fresh hollow bore needle that had somebody's fresh blood in it, you probably have zero worries other than, maybe the infection, make sure your tetanus booster is up to date and that kind of thing. And then you just want to keep the wound clean, soap and water, and just watch for redness or irritation. And if you have any concerns, obviously go see your doctor about it.
Yeah, when it happened, you know what happened, Tony? What happened? I was digging by myself over at that old mill house site where we got kicked out after the construction company came in, and they withdrew our permission. Yeah, and it looked like I figured it out. It was like a kind of an old-fashioned insulin needle, is what it was. That had been sitting there forever, and I just happened to run across it, and I was like, man.
Oh, another incident that I've seen two of this week. In this last week, I've had two patients that have came in that have gotten into fire ants. And these little boogers will sting and cause a welt. One lady had purple blisters around her ankles, and another girl that I took care of, she's actually a friend, and I didn't actually take care of her. She went to the hospital because she started having some fast heartbeat and some trouble breathing. And at the hospital, they gave her some IV steroids, and she had already taken some Benadryl, and the whelps went down pretty quick, but it was pretty scary for her.
I've had one experience with those fire ants.
Yeah. If you knew you were allergic to bees or wasps, it wouldn't be a bad idea to carry an EpiPen. And but that's a rare case anyway.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Well, if you've got a digging partner, that's something you'd want to share with each other.
Absolutely. Same thing if you were a diabetic. Yeah, if you've got an underlying health condition, it's wise to let us know what to watch for.
Yeah.
I've heard of a person who is a diabetic, and he was out mowing a yard one time, and he started feeling weak and dizzy and just wobbly, and his sugar got so low he really couldn't communicate very well. And so the person that was with him knew he was a diabetic and went inside the house, grabbed a Diet Coke, and gave him the Diet Coke. And the Diet Coke did nothing because he needed real sugar at that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
To get the sugar up. So, not only is the knowledge of what is going on important, but how to fix it.
How to treat it. Yeah, absolutely. I know that we've come across a couple, you had mentioned fire ants, poison oak, poison ivy. Maybe not necessarily a concern immediately, but you'll know after the fact, right?
For sure. And there's
I've
about three things to do for that. When you get a contact dermatitis, a colder or cooler shower is important. An antihistamine like Benadryl or Claritin or Allegra is also important. And if it's so bad you're miserable from it, then maybe a steroid injection or a Medrol dose pack could help. And to add to that, in Arkansas, we've got chiggers, we've got ticks, and those are a problem. And obviously the chiggers, you really can't see them, and you're just going to itch from that. But the antihistamine and the cool shower still works for that. And the ticks, my advice would be just to remove it as completely as you can, and watch for any signs of local rash or fever or joint pains. And not everybody that gets bitten by a tick needs antibiotics or a doctor's office visit. But if you have those concerns, then you should knock that off your list.
Should you scrub the site after you've removed as much of the tick as possible with some, antibacterial soap or anything? Or
I think just a gentle cleansing is enough. The main thing is just making sure that you've gotten all the mouthpieces out, if you can. And, typically if you do a good search the day or 2 days after the outing, you'll probably get most of them, unless it's a little seed tick. They're kind of hard to find.
Yeah. I think we don't have a lot of the ticks out here in Colorado, but we have, I know Ken and I have been out with one of our buddies, Beth, and she texted us after she got home, and she said that she had found a tick on her in the area that we were at. So, even over in Colorado, it gets cold enough that we generally don't have those, but they can be out there.
Fire ants was terrible for me. I was in Florida one time, and I didn't know anything about them. And a friend I was with was like, "Yeah, we're going to do some stuff in a park." So I removed my shoes and my socks. I was out there in that grass, and all of a sudden, it just felt like my entire leg was on fire, like serious fire. And I got really concerned. I looked down. I just had these 2 little spots, and the guy's like, "Oh my gosh, there's fire ants." And I couldn't believe how much it hurt, how much it affected me. I was actually really concerned with it, but thankfully it went away, and cold compress and some things.
Yeah.
Those
can be bad, especially if you have a pretty good reaction to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we've got another question from the live chat. Dave Daly, welcome in, Dave. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on and joining us tonight. Dave says, what about snake bites? Down here in Texas, snakes don't play around. I know that
they don't.
We've had at least 2 that I can think of, 2 times that we've come in contact with snakes. So
and rattlesnakes,
obviously wear snake boots if you can, but say someone gets bit, what's your suggestion on that?
Yeah, well, first is try to be as aware of your surroundings as you can, that you use your coil or your shovel to kind of shoo those suckers away. And if you're unlucky enough to be bitten by a snake, cutting the wound, sucking the venom out is just for TV. That's not really recommended. The treatment of choice for most bites is immobilize the area that was bitten. Try not to get panicky and get out of the woods and get out of the area and get to your healthcare provider or emergency room as quickly as you can. Not all envenomizations are life-threatening, but they can be quite severe. And there's usually antivenom that can be given in emergency room setting for those cases. And but just be calm and avoid the snake. They say that the snake won't go too terribly far from the place where you're bitten. So if someone is panicking and people come to the area, another person could be bitten. And
sure.
Be careful.
Yeah, I saw actually a video of a very close call from a friend of mine in Australia. His name is Neil Colston. And he has a video. I've watched it so many times. It scares me every time. He's got a camera mounted to his shaft of his metal detector, and it's filming down at the coil. So he's sweeping his coil back and forth, and all of a sudden and he's walking. So he's covering some ground, and all of a sudden off camera, you hear his digging partner go, "Joel." He's warning him. And this snake coils up and strikes, and it was an eastern brown snake, like the second most deadliest snake in the world. And he's like, "Jesus!" He's like, "Oh my God!"
Australia has too many animals that can kill you.
Right?
They've got too many.
Don't they? Though, man, I'm telling you, they do. Goodness. Between spiders and snakes, Yeah, and he shoos it back with his coil. He shoot it back into its hole, you know. I was like, man,
wow.
Guess you must be used to that. Crazy. Yeah, we haven't had too many close calls, but definitely ran into them out there. We get rattlesnakes here a lot.
Well, that takes me into another topic. You know, there are some people that are beach or surf hunters, and in the summertime, you got to think about jellyfish and other little crustaceans that could cause a venomization. And I was reading a little bit about that earlier, and acetic acid or vinegar, it can be a solution that can help relieve that pain. And I think that obviously keeping calm and maybe an antihistamine later for the itch. But one thing that they talked about with some of those different types of stings was put salt water on it to wash it off rather than fresh water. I'm not sure what difference that makes, but somebody from Florida may be able to help out with that a little bit more than I can.
Yeah. You know, if you're from Florida, you're in the chat, let us know. You know what I've heard, right? And you guys have probably heard it too.
I was going to just ask. I know where you're going.
Go ahead.
Urine.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yep.
Wives' tale?
I will pee all over you if you get done. I can guarantee that.
You heard it right here on Relics Radio, folks. Not interested.
I got your back, buddy. I got your back.
Well, I've heard it's better to be peed off than peed on, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're right on that one. Is that? I mean, that's supposed to work too, right? That's not just an old wives' tale.
It may help. You know, when you're sitting there and you're
it'll
hurting,
be entertaining for sure.
If you're hurting bad enough, you'll probably be willing to try about anything.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
In the chat, Michael Boyle says he hates spiders. He got bit by a brown recluse, and you know I did too. One time, I didn't know it. I didn't know what it was. I'd put my socks on, I put my shoe on, and it felt like I had picked up a thread from my sock, and it had wrapped around the base of one of my toes. And so with my other foot, without taking my foot out of my shoe, I'm taking the heel of my other shoe, and I'm like just pressing down, trying to get that thread off my toe. And later, when I got home, I peeled my sock off, and I had this huge blister between my big toe and my second toe, and it was all dark around the edge of it and all this stuff, and it was getting bigger. And, you know, I took it in. I finally had to go in the doctor. It was just looking nasty. And I let it go like another few hours.
I had a spider bite this week as well.
You did?
I had a guy. Yeah, a patient had a spider bite on the inside of his right knee. And he had a central dark area of tissue. And it was surrounded by larger than your palm size area of red tissue. And we gave him some antibiotics, and I gave him another medication called Dapsone. It may or may not be officially indicated, but it may help cut the inflammation out. Anyway, his picture that his wife sent me today of his leg showed the redness had gone down remarkably. And, you know, when a spider bites a person, typically it's a defense mechanism. But when a spider bites an insect, he's injecting his fangs into the exoskeleton of the bug. And he's trying to inject poison to turn it into a Slurpee and come back and drink it later. And when that poison gets inside your skin, it can literally dissolve some of the flesh. And obviously, depending on the location of the wound and how much venom you got in you, it will determine the amount of tissue destruction. But thankfully, most people don't do terribly bad with those bites, but they can be painful.
Yeah, it happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me. So I get this bite, I let it go a whole day, and then a few more hours after that. I remember my wife was giving me such a hard time at the time. She was like, so I finally told her, I think I need to go to the doctor. Like it started about the size of a pea, and then the blister got about the size of a quarter between my two toes, and it was growing. And I go in to see the doctor. She goes, I can't believe you're going in the doctor for a spider bite. You know, she was giving me a real hard time for it. And I go in there, and he looks at my thing, and he goes down and he cuts open the blister, and all this pink liquid come out. And he goes, that's tissue. That's melted tissue. Right. He goes, whatever you got bit by was nasty. I'm putting you in the hospital. And so I call my wife. I'm like, hey, they're admitting me to the hospital. I stayed in there for a whole day with IV in, and they kept coming in and cleaning out my toe every couple hours. And I felt ridiculous because I knew I needed it, but I'm sitting in this hotel room with this piece of gauze between my toes, and so many, much more sick people there in the hospital, needing their attention. I felt terrible for taking up their time, but yeah, it was pretty nasty,
Serious.
Well, I think it's always better to err on the side of caution. We can always go back to the doctor later if we get worse, but if we delay treatment for anything, sometimes it may get to the point of no return, which isn't what we want to talk about.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. Yeah. And I guess just knowing your own physical and medical condition, before you go out. I know that, what I always was curious about, I wanted to ask you was, so a lot of people, I know like myself, right? I like take like blood pressure medicine in the morning. I also take some meds that I use for my trigeminal neuralgia that I have. And that's about it. So, but I know a lot of people have various health issues that they take, maintenance meds for. Will the heat or the extremes, the extreme heat, extreme overexertion, will those interact with certain meds? Like, are there,
well,
you got to be careful with that.
You always just need to be situationally aware, but obviously when it's hot outside and you're working really hard and you're exerting yourself, you can metabolize more sugar than you normally would. And so a diabetic may find that their blood sugar level drops. Typically, blood pressure is not something that I would worry too much about if a person was generally well controlled on their medications. And if they had heart disease, obviously we'd want that person to kind of monitor their activity and take frequent breaks and just make sure that they're not having any worsening of their symptoms. You just can't ever tell.
Yeah, I was wondering about like antidepressants or diuretics, like if like the heat or overexertion would help lessen the effectiveness of those, or if it would actually cause any kind of interaction. I didn't know if it would or not, but I was thinking, I wonder if that was a case. It would be a case or not, and it'd be a good question to ask you, just in case people out there are like, oh, what about Lyrica? Or
right. Yeah, I couldn't speak to any specific medicine being more quickly metabolized in the summertime than the wintertime, or with exertion for in that way. I think most of the time, most of us are pretty stable on whatever medicine regimen that we're on. And, I guess maybe a consideration would be if you had a new medicine or a change in your medicine, that your doctor was, your diabetes is out of control, or you've had really bad blood pressure. Those could be conditions that you would want to go into easily. Now, I'll tell you a personal one on me. Okay, so I was taking a medication called Flomax, and it's to help with prostate issues. And so when you're urinating more and you're losing fluid more, your blood pressure can drop. And so I started noticing that I was seeing the twinkles, the stars, every time that I would stand up. And one time I stood up from my bed, I checked my blood pressure, it was 88/56. And so I knew that medicine was dropping my blood pressure just a little bit more. And so when you have low blood pressure, probably the first thing to do is just sit down, make sure you're not going to fall down, but to keep yourself well hydrated.
Sure.
The more water in your system, the higher your pressure will be. And just follow up with your doctor to make sure that you're not going to faint or get out and overdo it.
Do you ever recommend people take salt tablets in the heat, and or what would necessitate that? Yeah.
Well, I think probably more extreme, hardcore exertion, like a half marathon, or trail run, some type of a strenuous endurance type event would do more. Would necessitate something like that. Typically we're not getting our heart rate up unless we find something extremely valuable, and we're not, we're not severely exerting ourselves. We're walking at a slow pace, and we can take our time digging holes, and we don't have to get short of breath or winded doing any of this stuff. We can take our time.
Excellent. Hey, Tony, let's open the phone line, see if anybody wants to call in with some questions as well. If you're out listening live, feel free to give us a call here to the show. Come on with Dr. Jeff. I'm sure he'll answer your questions. We'd love to talk to you. Get ready. Here comes the phone number. It's area code 270-495-0315. One more time for you. Area code 270-495-0315. Feel free to call on in. If I see your call come in, we'll pick up on you, and you can ask Dr. Jeff your question about health concerns and metal detecting and what to look out for. I know that, part of what we wanted to talk about tonight. Oh, we got a first call coming in real quick. We'll go ahead and take this call, and then I'll get to some of this other stuff I have on my list here. Hey, Denny Morrison, Mr. DS2 user, fellow DS2 user. How are you, Denny?
I can use the word D too, also.
Yes.
Tony.
We'll let it slide just because the doctor's here.
Hey, I'm glad the doc uses the best machine out there, and that's good. Tony asked a question a little while ago. Have you ever been where they had an emergency in a field? At the last digging in Virginia, which was just a month ago, there actually was a fellow hauled away in an ambulance. He was having trouble getting his breath, and his blood pressure was way down. And when they came in, they hauled him out. And when you get hauled out from digging in Virginia or any place, that's your last hunt for the week. You don't come back.
Wow.
So, yeah. Right. But I have seen it before, and one time they even brought a helicopter in. We have EM personnel on all of our hunts, and we had a helicopter come in one time and take a guy out. So he made it, but you always got to be careful. So
it can happen for sure.
The worst thing ever happened to me, I came out of the woods, and of course I'm on blood thinners, and I went through some briars, and I didn't even know it. And the guy said, "Hey, Denny, your arm's bleeding." I went, "Yep, it sure is." And Doc,
all bleeding eventually stops.
Yeah, Rodney Cox was there, and actually he was EM guy at that time, and he had some super glue with him. They have special medical super glue. He pulled that baby out of his pocket, and he cleaned it off with some saline and put the super glue on, and that thing, he said that'll be on there for quite a while, and it did. It lasted almost 6 or 7 days before it finally came off, but it healed right up. And I went on metal detecting.
That's a good trip.
Yeah,
that's a good tip.
Yeah, yep. It really works. So, but it's not just regular super glue, guys. It's a medical super glue.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Okay, in a pinch, anything would work.
Right. Jeff, you said all bleeding will eventually stop.
Holding pressure.
Right.
All bleeding eventually stops, one way or the other.
One way or the other, right.
It's best to hold pressure.
Actually, you guys, this is a really good program. I'm surprised some of the other talk-in shows have never had a doctor on. It's a good idea.
Yeah,
so
thanks, Danny.
A lot of things can happen in the field that you never know.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, one of the things you were talking about, bending over, getting down on your knees. If you don't do a lot of exercising before you go to these hunts, maybe like Ken when they went to England, I'm surprised you guys didn't get leg cramps.
We did.
There you go.
Yeah,
so that means you're not drinking enough water, for one thing.
True.
So,
right.
And my electrolytes were low. I actually was taking a magnesium and potassium supplement while I was there to try to combat that.
Yeah, I always take leg cramp pills with me, so I take them at night. One time I was in Virginia, and I got leg cramp in the right leg. And when I got it free, the left leg, and it just kept going back and forth. I went, oh, my gosh.
Isn't that the worst?
The next day, I ate every banana in the cafeteria. Yeah. So,
well, hey, thanks for the call, Denny. We appreciate it, buddy.
Bye now.
Take care, buddy.
Hey, Jeff, I kind of stepped on you for a minute. We were talking about bleeding. You were talking about direct pressure is probably the best thing for it.
Yes. Yeah. You want the bleeding to stop. And, you know, obviously if you can assess whether it's an arterial bleeding or venous bleeding or just superficial, and then, you know, you need to make an assessment whether it's something that would need to be sewn up or super glued, or if you could just put direct pressure and hold it for a little while. I had a patient one time who his profession was working on refrigerators and air conditioning units, and he would get cut so many times with aluminum in the backs of these machines that he just wrapped his arm and fingers up with paper towels and duct tape, and only the bad ones he'd come in and let me sew up. Eventually they'd heal up most of the time. But, the other consideration is if you're going to do something, get it looked at in the first 24 hours at least. A delayed closure for a wound sometimes paints us into a corner where it's not a good idea for us to close a wound that may have had a day or 2 or 3 of debris to get into it.
Do you guys have briars in Arkansas?
Of course we do.
Yeah, so we don't have too much of them here. Blackberries, yeah. Oof.
Yeah, all kinds of things, all kinds of thickets.
We don't have too many of them here that we get into here in Colorado, at least where we've been hunting so far, knock on wood. But we went to Oklahoma to a hunt in Oklahoma last year, and we got back in them, and that was my first experience with tangling with briars. And, yeah, you can have them. I don't really care to be in them. They reach right up and get you.
They will. They don't turn loose.
They don't.
That was the thing that got me was I would try to push through it and just, okay, I'm going to get some cuts here and there. You would push through and it get worse and worse, and then you're stuck. You got to back out now because it wouldn't let go.
Oh, and if you're in a thicket where there's a bunch of thorn trees and you're not paying attention, you can get caught there too. That's not fun.
Good tip. Good tip.
Don't like that. We get cactus every now and then. You got to watch where you're sitting. You get these cactus. Cactus in your butt, but
many times, knelt down in it, put my hand in it, sat down on it. Yeah.
Let me ask you about some of these signs. I don't know if you can go into this, but what should people be looking for? What are some signs of stroke that people need to be concerned with? And then also like dehydration and heat exhaustion, hypothermia, all that stuff, or any other symptoms people should be looking out for when they start experiencing it.
Yeah, for stroke in particular, I would say I would ask my patient to smile for me. And if they could smile and both sides of their face were symmetrical, both sides of their mouth would go up. If they could open and close their eyes at the same time and neither were drooping or slurred, I would ask the patient to lift their left arm or left leg or right arm or right leg up and make sure that they had good grip strength. I would ask them to talk to me. And if their speech was jumbled or slurred, that could be a sign. And if they're having signs, they definitely need emergent care and get to the emergency room as quickly as possible. Dehydration, it's just like we had talked about with the seeing stars, being lightheaded, particularly, it can be made worse by certain medications and the excessive stooping down and standing up and squatting down and standing up repetitively. That can really make that worse.
What about
for dizziness?
Yeah, before we move on to like heat exhaustion, hypothermia, and stuff like that, what about for dehydration? What are your thoughts on electrolyte supplements or water with electrolyte added to it?
Yeah.
Like, is that marketing gimmick, or is there's some valid,
no, I think they're all legitimate. There's different considerations for different people. If you're a diabetic, or if you're poorly controlled diabetic, you might want to try something along the lines of a lower sugar, like a G2 or G0 type energy drink, or a Powerade that didn't have sugar. If sugar is not a concern, then any of those would be fine. Those electrolytes can really come in handy. I had done a Tough Mudder obstacle course race one time, and I felt my muscles seizing up on me. And after one particular obstacle, just like the previous caller had said, I found a banana and I found a peanut butter bar, candy bar right past that, and getting that salt from the peanuts and the peanut butter and the banana, the potassium and the magnesium, all that stuff really helped my muscles to start working again. And, just an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and making sure that like we talked about before, that we have some reasonable breaks in between marathon digging sessions. And, sometimes even someone that's prepared can be caught off guard.
Yeah. So what about heat exhaustion? Is there differences between the signs of heat exhaustion and dehydration, or do they usually go hand in hand?
I would say heat exhaustion, or further, even heat stroke, would be more extreme cases of the dehydration. And, obviously, someone could experience some confusion. If you're out and it's in a hot, humid environment and you've been sweating, and all of a sudden you're not sweating anymore and you start getting cold, it's probably time to call it a day and get in the air conditioning, sit in the shade, drink some water, and make sure somebody's attentive to you before you try to get back up and hike back to the truck or leave.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to practice martial arts quite strenuously, and I'd go away to these training seminars. I was in Florida one time, and I didn't, I was young and less dumb than I am now. But my teacher came over, and we were just having this, 4-hour training session where you're like throwing each other around a mat and just sweating like crazy. And he came over and he kept looking at my palms, He's like, when your palms aren't sweating, you need to go get water. You should be constantly sweating. And I thought, that's a good tip. Like, I hadn't even thought about that. I looked down, my palms were bone dry, I was like, okay.
Most of these things we can probably prevent a lot of that stuff from coming with just a little diligence, just a little paying attention.
Yeah.
Well, just taking that extra time, just a quick break, every hour or two or whatever,
right?
Just to drink something, will stop a lot of these different things.
Right.
I think we were getting to hypothermia. So sometimes, like especially here in Colorado with the altitude and the cold, and a lot of times we're not out there in sub-zero degree, but I know when you get up into the mountains, you can get, it's still diggable in the wintertime, but what about signs of hypothermia? Like, what do you got to look out for there?
Well, we're not really from the Arctic North in Arkansas, so we get a little cold weather, but not like you guys. But obviously, if your lips were starting to blanch or your fingertips were blanching, you're not getting enough blood supply. And then all this boils back down to making sure that you are dressed properly for the conditions, making sure that you're layered properly, making sure that you're taking plenty of breaks, and an ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure here.
Yeah. Hey, we got another caller on. Copper Joe. Copper Joe, welcome to the show. You're on Relics Radio.
Hi.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good. You're on with Dr. Jeff, Tony, and myself.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Kind of interesting for Dr. Jeff.
Sure.
Like how electrolytes, like in your water, like if you're getting cramps, mineral water, does that? I had a buddy that gave me some when I was up in Michigan when I go trout fishing. We walked in like a mile and a half, and if you start getting cramps, mineral water seems to work.
Well, I'm not sure what all is in mineral water. If it's just plain water, or if it does have sodium or potassium or anything in there, but probably, so I can't really say for sure, but I would say definitely the electrolyte drinks are a good substitute, and even just water is fine. But when we do sweat, we lose our salt, and replacing our fluids with something is probably a wise idea. Non-alcoholic something.
Good clarification.
Well, I know that.
Darn it.
I know that I don't overdo myself. If I'm out detecting or something and maybe I'm there for a half a day and it's really hot, I kind of know my limit to the point where I can say, okay, enough, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it's not a bad idea to always have a buddy with you, and just, if check on your buddy, ask him, make sure your buddy's doing fine, and just each person check on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think most of these situations can be avoided or nipped in the bud if we're observant.
Yeah, and I really do advocate using walkie-talkies if you can. I know Tony and I use them out in the field. We're never more than probably a quarter mile away at the furthest, but you get to places like England where you'd be up to a mile away, and you're sometimes not seeing another detector. So being in constant contact is definitely important, and touching base with each other regularly for sure.
Yeah. Well, that made me think of another thing, Ken. Sorry to interrupt there, but even having a feature on your cell phone where your loved ones could keep track of you. I have a Find My Phone app, and so I can tell if my wife is at home or if she's at work or wherever she is. And if I'm going out somewhere, I'm going to tell her what town I'm going to or what field I'll be at, and that way she can know what to expect me and when I should be home and where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's always a good idea.
By that one for sure. I do a lot of hunting, out up in the mountains, as well as metal detecting and things like that. And I always let my wife know where I'm heading to. And then when I arrive there, I send her my location, and she can then also track it by the Find My Phone. And it's not she's out there worried if I'm, out, gallivanting around or something like that. It's just, she just wants to know where I'm at. And, it's just courtesy and concern. Cause
it's another layer of protection. Right.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Joe's point to know yourself and know your limits applies not only for health concerns, but all kinds of other concerns. You really just got to be honest with yourself and know yourself. But it's tough, right, Joe? Like, especially if you're on a hot streak or you get into a good spot, you're like, well, I could go a little further. I could go a little longer. I know I do that to myself a lot and then usually end up regretting it. But yeah, knowing yourself is definitely
well. And the thing up here too, I live in the Midwest. That up in Wisconsin, we got a lot of a lot of concerns that I have when I'm detecting. I watch out for like wood ticks, bear ticks, because you got Lyme's disease, of course, and so these things you really got to watch for up in the Midwest.
There's every area's got its own tick-borne illnesses. Here's a little tip that I've seen: take some electrical tape and wrap it around your pants leg, sticky side out, and that may stop a few of them. You're still going to get a few, probably anytime you go out, but I don't think you can stop them.
Yeah, I always wear I got these camel pants, and they got the bottoms that you can tighten up, you can tie on the bottom. That's very important because you're right on that, because otherwise you can ticks can get up into you, and I find that some years are real bad and some years aren't so bad,
Right.
Yeah, and snake gators are also another great advice to use if you're in snake country. The weather turns, and like right now with spring hitting, they're wanting to come out and get warm, and wearing a good pair of snake gators definitely could not only help with possible snake bite, but also like stuff like cactus and some of the low-lying gravias that we get into sometimes. I know mine are invaluable. I really enjoy them. They're kind of a clip-on, clip-off. I know Tony wears a pair of boots that are already snake gators themselves, made right in the material. So anything you can do to protect yourself for what you're facing out there. And I think it all comes back to being prepared. It all comes back to knowing where you're going, knowing what obstacles you're going to be facing, what dangers might be there, what your surroundings are going to be like. So, well, cool, Joe. Thanks for calling. You got anything else for the doctor, Jeff?
Well, I was just going to say another thing I like to do too is I'll always wear a long sleeve shirt. And if it's really hot, a long sleeve shirt's great. But if it's moderate temperatures, say 60 degrees or whatever, I can wear a sweater. But I always wear something long sleeve because you got like you said, the blackberry brush if you're in the woods. Open field is a little different, but you got to watch yourself with blackberry brush and stuff. That's pretty rough on you.
Well, let's don't forget about sun protection too, because skin cancer is a lifelong threat for some of us. And paying attention to those types of issues as well as sunscreen and a broad brim hat. All those things can come in handy.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thanks, you guys.
Sure. Joe, thanks for calling in.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Take care up there.
Yep. Good talking to you. Yep. Bye-bye.
Talk to you.
Sometimes I forget.
Go ahead, Tony.
I was just saying, I never realized just how dangerous metal detecting is. All of these, I mean, it's like we're saving the world. Where gosh, leaving the house, you'd act like we need our armor for all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you do, man. What about good first aid kit, Dr. Jeff? What's a good first aid kit people can keep with them?
Probably it would be, for me, it would be something that I would keep in my truck. I would keep maybe some gauze, some bandages, maybe a liter of sterile water, maybe some peroxide, some Band-Aids themselves. I might keep some bug spray. What else?
I know Denny in the chat had mentioned he's got a snake bite kit in his truck.
Yeah, that's not as big of a problem in Northeast Arkansas, but different areas come with their own things.
Yeah.
You know, some people might need bear spray.
Yes, absolutely.
Think about that.
Yeah.
We've got bears in Arkansas, but we're not likely to see them.
Yeah, or in my case, moose spray. You ever heard of that story, Tony?
Moose.
I had a moose jump out of the bushes on me, man. I thought I was a grizzly bear because I was in grizzly country, and oh my gosh, shocked the begolly out of me. I tell you.
In that case, extra toilet paper comes in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can use the gauze to double the toilet paper.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was faster than my partner though, so I felt pretty safe. Uh-huh. I'll tell you what, Dave Daly says you can also set an alarm on your phone to remind you to drink to help you stay hydrated.
That's a good point.
And that's another good tip. As long as it's not Jack Daniels. Another shot? Oh, man, I got to do another shot.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great tip. You get focused and you just lose track of time. Like you said, sometimes we're out there 8 hours and all of a sudden you look down at your watch and like, wow, where did the time go to? We literally hadn't even stopped to drink anything yet, you know? So I think that's, yeah.
Yeah. Just battling yourself. Like, I think, like I look back so many times, we just push it to where we're like, man, do you want to stop or do we want to just keep going? And like, even in England, like if you guys didn't make me stop for lunch, I probably wouldn't have. I probably just pulled the sandwich out of my pocket and ate it in one hand while I was swinging with the other.
Yep.
Yeah, you're in England. What are you doing?
I tell stories to my patients, and you've never gone to work and looked down and you forgot to wear your shoes again today. You put your shoes on automatically. You brush your teeth automatically, and we should have that same mentality about taking some exercise, whether it's weights, whether it's cardio, whether it's flexibility training, strengthening, stretching, and we should just implement those types of healthy lifestyles in our daily grind and make it automatic. And that's going to fortify us against injuries. And we can still have them happen, but I definitely want to be prepared.
Yeah. A great tip. We can all do better at that, right? Like it's always a constant struggle to get more of that in. I know that Digging the PNW said, where's it at? He was saying, is there anything better to drink than water? I'm thinking like
water's good.
I've heard a lot about chocolate milk for recovery. Like if you're very fatigued and you're really, a lot of people that exercise strenuously, they'll drink a little chocolate milk for recovery. But I think, just plain water,
moderation's the key for everything. But chocolate milk's a good recovery drink. Some people will drink a protein drink daily. The electrolyte drinks are good to have in certain situations. And water is good. Sometimes you need a little sugar, sometimes you don't. Some people like a little caffeine in their daily drinks, but just avoiding those situations where you're getting in trouble is the smartest thing.
What about snacks? So, something, I always go to like beef jerky or something like that, like a combination of salty, protein. What do you think people should carry for snacks? Maybe they don't want to stop and have a full lunch, but maybe they want to carry snacks with them if they're only going to be out for 4 hours or so.
Yeah, I think all that sounds good. Beef jerky is a good thing, and probably some energy bars might be a good thing. Fresh fruits can be good. Peanut butter and crackers can be good. And again, if someone's a diabetic, they want to stay away from the real junky, high carbohydrate sugar bombs, but something with a little protein or complex carbohydrate. Even some fresh vegetables could be good. I've had a microwave sweet potato that I've carried around with me. That's a good food to eat. It's good energy,
Wow.
and it tastes good.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
When you're eating fruit, sometimes the dadgum bananas and apples and grapes are so big you may overdo it and have 2 or 3 servings before you look up.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
think
I
you're
agree.
doing a good
They're
thing,
huge,
but you may
man.
be doing too much.
Right. And sometimes
Again,
that's where
just
that toilet
moderation.
paper comes in handy. Eat too much of that stuff, you're going to be looking for a bush. Guarantee it. Yeah. Yeah. Carry water in your pouch. Trail mix. Jason came in with some trail mix.
Yep. Trail mix is good.
Yeah.
Some nuts.
Yeah.
Some chocolate.
Do you dig with a partner,
just
Jeff, or are
moderation.
you usually solo out there?
No, I usually have a couple of partners depending on what location I'm hunting at. I prefer to go with somebody as to go by myself, just for the camaraderie and bragging rights.
You
Right.
do a lot of
competition
bragging, I know
aspect
that.
of it. The competition aspect, it's it keeps me motivated and keeps me excited when someone else, and obviously if you're not finding anything but somebody else is, well, you know that there's something out there.
Yeah.
It's not just you that's missing it.
I will tell you, you and I, Jeff, we went out. Do you remember when we went out to that one field right by the small house, and your first target was a milled silver? And
very first
you found
target of the day.
Very first target in that, yeah, right away.
Yes.
And you kind of you shuffled around through there, and you ended up kind of going off a little bit. I stayed in that spot because I was so damn competitive. You found silver there. I gridded off that front of that field right by the house. I didn't find anything. You're the one. You found the only silver in that field. I gridded it off because I was like, I'm gonna find another piece of silver here because Jeff just. I couldn't tell. I was first target. You were 10 feet into that field and you pulled that silver.
That was crazy. I had been on a little bit of a drought up until that point, so that was very well welcomed.
Let's talk about that,
It
Jeff.
was such fun.
Tell us about some of the stuff you found this trip in England, and then maybe follow that up with some of the coolest things you've found in previous trips to England.
Ooh. Man, when we find things, every item that we find has to go through a process, and we clean them up and we put them on a paper towel, and Chris, the guide, comes and takes them up, and a finds liaison officer has to go through and catalog and photograph everything we find and determine if it was a treasure trove item or not. And if it's treasure trove, then the British Museum will buy it from us. And if it's not treasure trove, then we get to take it home with us after we get our export license. And this trip was pretty typical of the others that I had been on. I found 6 silver coins this time. I only found 1 hammered silver, and the 5 others were milled silver coins. I found a lot of what we call greenies, which are 17 and 1800s copper coins from England. I found some thimbles, some watch winding keys, lots of lead. Lead comes in all different sizes and shapes and has all different uses. Lots of different caliber musket balls. And I found a couple of Roman bronze coins and some early hammered copper coins from England. And I found in one field, I found 2 Roman fibula brooch pieces out of the same field. It was the horse tack field. I can't remember what the name of that one was, but it was pretty productive. And it's just great fun. By the end of the day, your pouch is so heavy with all the stuff that you find. And, just like any other time, you're going to find your share of junk too. Canned slaw and, just you're going to dig some nails. I dug some iron. But
you didn't find any buttons, did you, in those 7 days? Not a button, right?
Buttons, 2-hole buttons, 1-hole buttons, broken buttons, 4-hole buttons. round buttons, square buttons, buttons with letters on them, military buttons.
Yeah.
Did I mention buttons?
There are really a lot of buttons. Yeah.
You're starting to sound like Forrest Gump when he's talking about shrimp.
Yeah.
All the different kinds of buttons.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You find them all.
But
gilded, non-gilded, silver, gold gilded.
Yeah. Yeah,
amazing.
they can be very interesting
imagine.
livery buttons with an animal or a creature on them, a horse or a snake or a bird. Those are beautiful, and they all have such charm and character, and just the buckles, the workmanship that went into these pieces, and it's just incredible. I just love it.
Yeah, medieval game tokens, game pieces. You find trade weights. All kinds of stuff like that. Like
Bale seals?
Bale seals with dates on them. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. I want to find a seal matrix.
Yeah.
Where they used to melt the wax and close their envelopes with them.
Right,
and,
with a design on it or something. Wouldn't that just be incredible? It'd be
incredible. So it's such a personal.
And I'm 0 for 5 for gold. I have yet to find a gold item. And so that's high on my bucket list.
I tell the story all the time. When we went in 2020, Seth went with us that time too. He was on our recent trip with us. But Seth, he goes and he finds a Celtic gold stater. and then we broke for lunch right after that. After all the excitement, we broke for lunch. Everyone wanted to stay there, of course. And I tell my buddy Kevin, I said, if he doesn't go back to that area that he was in, we're going to go out there and grit it and hit it hard. And I had the same idea with about 5 other people, and we all went out there, and Seth didn't go back that way. He went a different direction. But none of us found another gold for about an hour and a half. We were all out there, and pretty soon after about an hour and a half, here comes Seth back to that area, and he hit another gold stater about 5 feet from me.
Wow.
And he said, look where it was, Ken. And the hole he dug it out of was only like an inch deep, and it was in somebody's boot print. It was right in the middle of somebody's fresh boot print, So, hey, real quick.
It doesn't
go ahead,
take
Tony.
much dirt to hide a coin.
It sure doesn't.
No.
It sure doesn't.
No.
Sometimes that stuff can even be on the surface. I've seen them on the surface.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Tony. You got another question come in?
Yeah, real quick on the chat. We're coming down to the end, but just to address this before we head out. Bill Crow asked, when I get bit by seed ticks, the bite blisters up for a couple of weeks, then the itch starts. What's best to put on the seed tick bites?
Well, for the bite itself, I would try not to scratch it and make it worse as far as the itching and scratching goes. I would probably use some Caladryl cream or Benadryl cream. I might even try a little hydrocortisone. And if it was infected, I'd make sure I saw my doctor. If you had a bullseye rash around that or joint aches or any fever along with that, definitely you might be a case where you would need some antibiotics. But just topical wound care and trying to remove the tick as quickly and completely as possible, as early as you can, is my best advice there.
Good.
And those things are hard to see.
Yeah, they sure are.
The older I get, the harder they become to see too.
Huh.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm having the same issue, I'll tell you. Last question here, just kind of your advice on something, because I struggle with this. I still don't know what the rule of thumb is on this. But let's say we're out there and we get some kind of injury. Either we bang our knee and it starts to swell, or we think we twisted our ankle and we get any kind of swollen, joints, let's say. Heat or cold? Like what's the rule of thumb there for dealing with?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I go back to what I would do in a sports injury. An acute injury, a football player twists his knee on the field or twists his ankle, or a baseball pitcher gets taken out of a game in the 7th inning for giving up a home run, and you look at him on the sidelines or in the dugout, and their elbow or their knee or their ankle is going to be wrapped up with ice. And I always remember the word rice for an acute injury. You would want to rest it, put some ice on it intermittently for the first probably 24 hours or so. You might want to compress it with an ACE bandage if it's compressible. And you might want to prop it up and keep it elevated. And then after it gets to be a little bit older, then those athletes might find themselves in the sauna or the hot tub rather, trying to get more blood to the area so that it can heal. And so I would do ice acutely right after it happened if I could.
When would you do heat? For strains, maybe?
Yeah,
or not
for the strain, for the same injury. For the same injury, after the acute phase is over, you do the ice so that you can maybe restrict blood flow or bruising or swelling acutely right after that. And then once the injury is kind of stabilized, and then I would switch over to the heat. And then, in regards to did I break it or not, a good rule of thumb, which is not absolute in the field, but a good rule of thumb is if you're able to bear weight, you're probably okay. But if it's swelling up bad or if it's getting worse, it's always best to seek a healthcare professional and maybe get an x-ray or at least evaluated.
Yeah. Wow. What a show, Jeff. Dr. Jeff Barber joining us right here on Relics Radio. It's been a great hour and a half. It's been a great show. I think people are going to really get a lot out of this. I know I'm going to go back and listen to this again. I think it's really needed out there in our hobby, and I'm really glad, Jeff, that you were able to take the time to talk with us and our audience. And it's always great when we have fellow metal detectors come along and give us his experiences and also his expertise in dealing with these things that sometimes come up and bite us. You know what I mean? So, Jeff, thank you so much.
I'm here to serve, and it was my pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Tony, you got anything for Jeff?
No, I want to just thank Jeff. I'm really glad I got to meet you on the trip to England. I had a fantastic time with you. And thanks for coming on tonight, giving us your time. I know you're out enjoying your time for the evening, and I appreciate you being able to speak with us. And I tell you, I've got a page full of notes here. I am going to go back and listen to this again. But what a fantastic show, and I really took a lot from it. I appreciate you.
You guys have my number, and if any more questions come up that are important, you can forward them to me.
No, that'd be awesome.
And I will do my best.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, want to hang on just a second? We'll say our goodbyes off the air.
All right.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Any last words for the listening public? I'll give you a last little second here any parting words?
My parting words are only you can make you better. And every day, every way, do something that builds up your health. That's it.
Perfect. Tony?
Love it.
Last words?
Yeah.
Anything going on in your world?
Jeff, no, probably do maybe some metal teching this weekend. So you can find all my links. I just put them in the chat. They're on the description here. You can find me at 5280 Adventures, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And appreciate everybody being here tonight. I'll see you next week.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, if you get out this weekend and have a good time, go find the good stuff. Be careful, be safe, be healthy. And one more time, thanks to Dr. Jeff Barber. We'll catch you next Thursday, another show right here on Relics Radio. We'll have a good guest lined up for you. And check us out on the Facebook group for Relics Radio as we keep you informed there as what's going on with upcoming guests. And also take your suggestions there. If you have any suggestions of who you'd like to see here on the show, be sure to drop us a line. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next Thursday.